What do you think sustains life in the community?
I think what sustains life in the community is when people are actually united and interacting with one another. Because in some communities, like there are people who are like so, like they separate themselves from other people. They're so like in their own space. They don't interact with no one else, and they don't want to talk to no one else. They just want to go to work and then go home, and that's that. I mean, in my community, it's the same way. Like no one talks to each other. It's so dead, and then it's dead. Like there's no life there. So I think like a good way to sustain life in the community is when people actually interact with one another and don't act so stuck up.
That's a great point. You're talking like when people are like coming home from work or whatever, and they just are passing each other in the street, but no one even acknowledges anyone or anything like that. Or you see the same person like every day at the bus stop, but you never
really talk
to. And it's like this could be a friend or a neighbor or a family member.
But there's no recycling at all. There's like regular garbage cans. You can do nothing. Like it's so bad. You can really walk down the street with your favorite colors on. Bricks in, they see you with the wrong colors on, they're ready to fight you or shoot at you or something like that.
Oh really?
Yeah. And then the school is terrible because 90 people in my neighborhood go to that school. And the security guards there, they are bad too because they don't care. As long as they get a paycheck, they let them fight. But when they see a security guard, like another one, principal or teacher, then they try to break it up or something.
Wow,
like,
so those are sort of things that you see in your neighborhood that are not quite right. But then like how do we take that a step farther? Have you ever thought about what you would do to change it? Or how you, as just one person, could start a movement?
I think I would try to stop the fight. Because there's some people like in my school, they would be fighting over the stupidest stuff. And it's like, sometimes I just want to step in and just stop it. But that's not a good idea. So,
yeah, that can be dangerous for sure. But like,
they might end up jumping me.
Yeah.
Trying to stop it.
But how do you think back, like, farther in the process, like, how do you create a community where they're not fighting every day?
You gotta have like the same sort of people in your community. Like, you can't have, it's like water and oil. You can't mix them together, basically.
Right.
You gotta have like, certain type of people in this community and the other side certain type of people in this community. Or you can get to understand each other. But it's hard for people to do that because people, they don't know how to understand because they're ignorant.
Well, and it goes right back to your original point that you said that people in your neighborhood like don't talk, right? So it's like if they talked, even if they are water and oil, maybe they would start communicating and they would start understanding each other. And then before you know it, because like no community can be just all water, right? I mean, they've done that in the past and it's turned out terribly. So like one of the beautiful things about Chicago is it is oil and water and all sorts of other things mixing together. But I mean, you're like attacking the same point, which is you get people to talk and understand and communicate. You stop the fighting.
Like it's gotta be like a place, like a center that like you can go and actually meet people. Like here, but over there.
I see what you mean. Having some sort of that goes back to like what sustains your community. Like you might say here, new media is a part of that, right? Not to I'm not trying to advertise it. It's great. But like, is there anything like that in any of your communities?
No, it's just a library in my neighborhood. That's all.
What's that?
A library.
There's a library.
And like people who only go there just gonna the people. You see like 2 people read books.
Really?
Other than that, you don't see nothing else.
What's that?
Same in my neighborhood.
Really, you don't see much happening like in the libraries or anything?
Other than that, you see like people standing in corners and stuff.
Huh.
I'm almost saying.
Is there any sort of community space? A community garden?
Do you guys have like centers? You guys don't have. So what is it?
Me and Kevin and I, we both live out of the city, and the only place around us that is like any kind of community center, there's like a youth community center, but it isn't really popular. I mean, it's mostly like, it's just like a place where kids go and they just play like video games. I mean, it isn't really like, there's not too much like a sense of community because not many people go there. So I think if there was like more like, things to do, like in the actual like center, other than just like play video games and hang out, I think more people would come to it. Basically, it just seems to be like a hangout place. There isn't really like any like projects or anything like else.
In the community center.
Yeah, it's not even like a community center. It's just like a youth center for like 8th to like 12th grade or something.
The first thing that we have to look at is something. We all come from different communities. So what goes on in your community might not go on in my community. So what works in your community might not work in my community. So what it all boils down to is that in order for our communities to get better, we have to find something that works in our specific community. But if you look at it nowadays, I had did a history paper in school. And my English teacher had told us to write a paper that's what goes on in your community and what can you compare it to. My paper was based off that community nowadays and what goes on in them, the drug dealing, the killing, the fighting, all the bad stuff that's going on in the school. It's like it's a war. There's a miscommunication. Teachers don't really understand how students feel. Parents really don't understand how we feel. You have certain people who really want to get to know how we feel, but how can we open up and trust any parent or teacher when we always have somebody that's older than us putting us down? So it's like there is a back and forth war that's going on. It's a war that's going on between the adults and the youth. It's a big war that's going on because we think that sometimes, I mean, sure, a lot of us can agree, sometimes teachers don't be fair. Sometimes parents don't be fair. And when it comes down to it, instead of us talking it out, anger comes in and then it does nothing but throw more gasoline onto the fire and makes it worse. So, like, my community, there is no youth center. There was one, but it closed down because of the kids.
Because of why the kids?
Because the kids coming in, damaging property, stealing property, fighting, police constantly being called. Ambulance have to come take people away. So a community center doesn't work in my community. So my thing is, if we want to get down to the gist of it, to get down to the seriousness of it, we have to figure out what works in everybody's community, because for one, we all come from a different background. The way I was brought up might be different from the way that y'all was brought up. Two, we all come from different communities. What you guys see in your community, I might not see it. Like, I heard somebody say, like, people don't talk in their community. In my community, when we come out the door, I know everybody on my block. Because we speak to each other. Even though we see a lot of fight, even though we see the drug dealing going on, but everybody knows everybody because we speak to each other. And if that person don't speak, you have to take the initiative to speak first, to spark a conversation. So a lot of communities are different. And what works for my community might not work for the next community. So the thing is, in order to get a sustainable community, we really will have to come up with ideas and really begin to visualize how can we compare and contrast our communities. What is the differences? What is the likes? And then maybe we can come up with a good idea on what we can do to fix it.
What is something that you think that your community needs in order to even start? Like, if you could choose the first stepping stone for your community, especially talking about that communication between the adults and the youth, what do you feel that, like, as a youth, what do you need from to start that conversation?
For my community, I would say what we need more as young people, because majority of my community is nothing but young people. And if they're not in school, they're on the corner selling drugs, they're gang banging, or they're fighting. So I say for our community, we need more guidance, because parents either work too much, don't pay attention, or they really don't care. I had wrote a paper a while ago called The Value of Your Child. Is your child really that valuable to you? Because a lot of parents put their job before their kids. They put anything before their children. And a child feels left out, alone. Loneliness, right, neglected. They feel like it has to raise itself. I don't think it's fair that a 13-year-old have to start his adult life in his teenage years. So I would say for our community, more mentors. But not people who are going to listen and then judge what we say, but literally people that will listen. Right, understand exactly what we're saying, know what we're going through. Right, somebody can really relate, because how can you talk to me about a situation that I've been through if you never experienced that situation? Right.
Oh wow, I just person just random people that don't care about life, they're trying to do this.
to me, it's like it's pointless. If you never experienced what I've been through, how can you relate to me? If you never went through what I had to go through, then why am I talking to you? It's like I'm telling you a story, and you're trying to figure out what to do to help me. So basically, it's like we need more mentors that understand exactly what we're going through. Not there just to, I mean, it's okay, it's cool to have somebody to be a comfort. It's cool to have somebody to lean on. But it's even better to have somebody that can really get on the level that you are on and understand you even more. Because all in all, understanding is powerful. Because if you really understand what I'm going through, then yeah, you might can help me might help pull me out of what I'm going through. But if you've never been through what I've been through, then to me, I don't know about nobody else, but to me personally, how can you help me if you never experienced it?
And I think that goes back to the idea of a community is a shared space and shared values, and it really starts with having a conversation and then that understanding. I think that's a really key word, and sometimes we underestimate the power of the word understanding, but it really is the foundation of a lot of communication, when you can begin to understand, even if not necessarily going through, but I can understand the emotion that comes with that. Or maybe similar situation, I may not have experienced the actual acts of what happened, but I can understand the emotions that are still attached to that action, and having that sympathy and that empathy for what someone's going through, and that all begins with understanding. And when you have the foundation of understanding, then you can begin to build, because everybody understands where they're trying to go to.
It's on both sides too. I mean, you get it. So if I'm in a dire situation, we're both in a neighborhood that's blight and ill conditions. There's going to be some level of common understanding between us. Now, if we try to go to a more well-off community and say these are our problems, let's connect. There's going to be a lack, some sense of understanding, but understanding starts with awareness, right? So one community has to be aware of the other, and vice versa. So the well-to-do has to be understanding of what the struggling communities need. The struggling community oftentimes, has to know that sometimes the well-off community that's not their everyday reality. So you can't resent a community that just isn't informed. So I think when you have mentors and then safe spaces like this where y'all can come together, y'all probably from all across the city and suburbs, right? So these are the spaces where dialogue happens and understanding begins to flow. Life is living, and that's just something I think about all the time. Like, how am I actively living my life? What am I using my life? Like, not only what's happening in my life, but how am I using my life to impact, or impact you guys? Like, when I'm here, that's part of me using my life and things of that nature. So what do you guys think about that? And I think that also sees into the sustaining a community, or sustaining life in a community, is how what is actively going on and living in a situation. So what do you guys think about the idea of life is living? How do you even bring back life? Because it seems like sometimes our communities aren't living in some context, whether there's no sort of community, center going on, or like you said, like they're not actively using your communities, and you have one, and no one's understanding the value of it. So how can we sort of generate or revamp like this idea of living and being active in our communities, and for whatever is the community needs, because every community needs something. No community is perfect, right? So
a good way to start would be with little things, like every now and then where I live, if I see someone who needs help with something, I just stop by and do it. I could have something else to do, but it's never that important. Like church near my home. I was walking past, I saw an old woman who was trying to get in. She was in a wheelchair. You need to pull a ramp from inside the hallway down and sit it down so she could get in. I had no idea how she would do that on her own, so obviously I stopped and helped her. But apparently people don't usually do that. Little things like that can help build a community, and I don't see why people don't do it.
Yeah.
No one's life is so important that you can't take it on and take something else.
That's totally cool, and a great example of that. Like, you see something and it's not quite right, so you take a second to just act.
I I think they should have groups and like study. You come in here, like in the library, they should have like groups, like people of any religion, nationality, anything that comes to like, oh, I'm gonna have the same problem. Like, so I'm not neglecting you because like there's an age difference. But like they'd probably be scared, like, oh, well, this guy's older than me, he got the same problem. And then he'll look down on him like, oh, I'm scared to tell, like, in a group. Like, I don't want people to know what I'm doing. You might look so happy and stuff, but behind your smile, probably a lot of pain and stuff like that. But like people don't come stuff, they like to stay, they sit them like, oh, I want to know your problems, I want you to know mine. Like, I'm here by myself, and they feel like neglected by the whole world, stuff like that.
That's a great point. Yeah, totally. Like you just stay closed in instead of sharing and seeing that you have a community around you.
Or like if they do have a group, you probably hear like 1 or 2 people talking. Like the whole circle not gonna talk. They ain't gonna say like share their problem. Only like me and him will talk, or me and him or me and her will talk. But like we won't talk like we kind of like scared of like our business and stuff like that.
Yeah. And then you find this common ground just to sit around and talk.
In order for us to actually awaken our community to put life back into it, we will have to change certain things about our community. Certain things we will have to start doing, and then certain things we will have to stop doing or stop others from doing. Because in certain communities, and the worst communities that they consider in Chicago, the communities are dying off. They're living, but it's dead. Like in a lot of communities, you find so many empty vacant lots that's full of trash, abandoned buildings, and spray painted all over. They're just sitting there. So there's doing nothing for one, taking the property value down. 2, is killing off the neighborhoods and the communities because now it's just add more depth to the community. It makes the community look like it's really not worth much living. It's not worth much even spending time to drive through to go visit anybody because this community is basically dead. I mean, there's living, there's walking in it, but it's a dead community. I mean, look how the community look, it's dead. So I would say certain things that we will have to change about our communities in order to awaken the communities, to bring the community back to life. I mean, if you go through certain communities, you find people starting new ones. They turn empty vacant lots into community gardens, into flower patches. A lot of people are complaining about the abandoned buildings. Now they're tearing them down and they're building newer houses or condominiums or wherever in place of the old building. But the question is, I mean, the adults are doing these things. But us as a youth, what part do we play in awakening our community? If we even play a part or have a role in it. So I would kind of figure that we would like, basically I would like to figure out how can I or we as a whole can play a part in not just my community, but everybody's community to find out where the deadness is and how can we put life back into the dead.